Hey, what's happening, everyone? Welcome to the fourth insert of Chatter Tuesdays, and I'm really excited to have you here today. Really, really honored for giving me your time. So for Sunday, the past Sunday, happy Mother's Day to all the beautiful mothers there that have really just embraced the journey of motherhood, whatever that means for you, because I really feel like it means different things for everyone. For me, just the reality that there's a little human being that is so dependent on me is an absolute, it's a pleasure, it's a privilege, and I really don't take that for granted. So happy Mother's Day. So in light of Mother's Day, I thought it would be so beautiful to have a conversation with young women about the journey of losing our own mothers, because I think it's really significant. The past Mother's Day, before I really healed from the loss, it was always such a painful day for me, and it was really hard to navigate and to acknowledge the fact that I actually do not have a mother. Some days are just emotional triggers for you, birthdays, Mother's Days, and every other day that you used to celebrate with them, or is used to honor that particular person, but that particular person is not there. So that on its own is such a huge trigger for me. But I'm at a point where it's no longer a trigger, and I am able to celebrate that life and really observe Mother's Day as a mother, but also honoring my own mother. So on Monday, after Mother's Day, which was yesterday, I engaged in like a really beautiful and profound conversation on Zoom with a couple of young women that are really close to my heart, and we really just sat and had a virtual conversation over Zoom about our journeys of trying to find healing after the loss of a mother. And it's heartbreaking to acknowledge, as a young woman, but also as a young Black woman, about the complexities around grief in our communities, right? Because a lot of the ladies had like a recurring sentiment or recurring experience about how they firstly struggled to grieve because they kept getting told to either get over it, or no, don't cry, you're gonna make the journey, the transitioning journey difficult. Your mom's not gonna rest in peace if you cry, and that kind of communication that we constantly hear during our grieving journeys makes it really difficult for us to come to a place of healing, because firstly we feel guilty for remembering our parents and trying to think about our parents. We feel guilty because people just tell you to just get over it. Now you're like, okay, maybe I'm just being the dramatic one. Plus, I'm really not the first person to lose my mother, so why can't I just get over it? And that's why it becomes so hard for you to really get to a place where you are okay with the loss. So I don't believe in the narrative that you're supposed to move on from a loss. I believe in the narrative that you need to move with the loss. And I've experienced loss so many times that when I actually sit back and talk about it, I actually really get to a place where I acknowledge how strong I am because of what I've been through. I get to see this gift of resilience that God has given me, because touching a dead person's body when you're like less than 10 is really just a traumatic experience for any child to go through, and I went through that. By the age of 16, I had already buried so many people that are close to my heart. I had buried my very source of existence, right? Because God in my life translated into my mom and my dad, and then all of a sudden those people are not there, and now it's like you have to navigate life with that loss, and it's heavy, and it's complicated, and it's dark, and it's even darker if you can't embrace that grief publicly, because when you are in public, you have to be strong, because everyone tells you to be strong. But when you in your own personal space, then you break down, because then you can allow yourself to be vulnerable. But how beautiful would it be if we can allow ourselves to be vulnerable publicly? And I'm not saying like all you ever do is just cry in public, but I'm also just saying it's a beautiful experience to be able to have a comfortable conversation about the people that you have lost in your life without breaking down. What I mean by not breaking down is not allowing yourself to be overwhelmed by the sadness or wallow in the negativity of, oh my gosh, I do not have a mother, or oh my gosh, I do not have a father. That for me is my definition of healing and moving with the loss rather than moving on from the loss, because it's not like you can completely disconnect yourself from the memories of your parents and the memories of the loved ones that you have lost, but you can really get to a place where you are okay with the fact that you cannot interact with them in this physical realm, right? And it really just depends on how you view death in your own circles. So I really believe very strongly in a concept called substance dualism, where you not only exist in like a physical plane, but you also exist as a spiritual being, right? And even if you could reference it to a Christian foundation, God created a human being from the earth, and then he breathed through those nostrils. So it's the physical earthly being plus the spiritual being. And for me, which has made my journey so much more fulfilling, is because now I really get to understand that because my parents or my loved ones are not right here in front of me does not mean they are not there. And there's so much beauty in that, because the ladies kept sharing about how their mothers would visit them in their dreams, and that alone is such a beautiful reminder from our parents and our loved ones that we've lost, that we're here. You don't get to see us, but we are here with you. So acknowledging that on its own. So my point is, grief needs to stop being such a hard conversation to have with the people around us. It's not an emotion we're supposed to be fighting. It's not an emotion we're supposed to be putting at the back of our heads, because at the end of the day, it really does change the course of your life forever. It really does change your perspective on things. I remember how lost I felt after my mother passed away. Like there was really no purpose for me to live. Life did not make sense because my mother was no longer there. And it's more complicated because I didn't grow up with her. Now I was really getting to know her, and then all of a sudden all of that is gone and things didn't make sense for me. So my life was really, really changed, and it took me a very long time for me to be able to embrace that publicly. And once I allowed myself to say I am not okay, then the work started for me, and then I started talking about it, and I talk about it a lot, and probably some people are slightly over it But I'm okay with that, because that's how I heal. The more I talk about it, and the more I talk about it without, having an emotional breakdown, is the more I remember that you're okay, you're breathing, and you're fine. So I really do pray that God can just continue to give me the strength to create more platforms for young people to talk about their grief and their experiences with trauma, because that's how we heal. So embrace it, acknowledge it. I think loss on its own is such a powerful emotion, and it's also an emotion that we need to have a sense of control over. So if you ever want to talk about your journey with loss, here's a chatterbox that is really open about her own journey, even through the dark times of suicide and trying to take my own life, because I just could not bear the pain. Even that stuff I talk openly about, because I really feel like we all go through the same experiences, and there has to be a reason why we go through the things that we go through. And for me, that reason is to make someone else's day much better, someone else's experience much better than how mine was. And that's why I do what I do. So grieve, just do it. Grieve. It's difficult. It's one of the most difficult things you will ever experience. And just the reality that death is an inevitable part of our lives doesn't make it any easier. But we learn to navigate our new realities, and we learn to move with and not move on from the pain. We learn to move with it, and we learn to be okay with the fact that our moms and our dads and our loved ones are no longer here with us. And we get to remember the beautiful memories. And Mother's Day does no longer become a trigger of sadness, but it becomes a trigger of really beautiful and happy memories. So just a crazy story. My mom, my maternal parents, my mom and my uncles and my aunts buried their mother on Mother's Day. In 1992, the same year I was born, they buried their mother on Mother's Day. And that on its own, when you haven't really dealt with it and haven't healed, becomes a trigger of really deep emotional scars. But also when you embrace your journey, then for my parents, Mother's Day is not just a day to celebrate her as a mother, my grandmother as a mother, but also her life, right? Just like a 2-in-1, man. It's a double celebration of a beautiful life lived, and also just a beautiful journey of being a mother to so many other human beings. So I really hope that we can continue the conversation on grief, and can really teach each other how to deal with grief, and just be and do better, and not block ourselves from just being fully present from right now, and taking in the lessons that life is offering us right now. So so let's continue the conversation. If you haven't had the opportunity to do so, please just engage with me. I'm a total conversationalist, and I really believe just conversations spark revolutions. That's the starting point. We think it, we speak it, and then if we apply some work, we get to live it. Thank you so much for your time, and I will see you next week, Tuesday.